So you're looking to start a career in data, but you're worried that you missed your chance. With the growth of AI, talk of it taking jobs, and also it being able to analyze data, you'll be forgiven for thinking that your opportunity had passed. But even with the growth of AI, there's still a need for companies to fill data roles. So there's still growth there, and also this trend is forecast to continue into years to come. And as someone who switched careers after 10 years of working in admin roles and now have 11 years experience doing various different data roles, I can safely say it's never too late to switch careers into data, whatever your age. And I'm going to cover some tips that are going to help you get to that career in data that you've always dreamed of. And I'm going to start with domain knowledge. Having knowledge of an industry or business like finance can be a massive help in being able to actually switch careers. This is because if you stick with an industry, you know it inside and out generally, depending how long you've actually worked in that particular industry. And having that knowledge is a lot more beneficial to employers if you're able to then just jump into a role and understand what everything means, compared to someone who's never worked in the industry and they're suddenly coming in with data knowledge, but no actual industry or business knowledge. They'll have to get up to speed on understanding how everything works, where you could jump in and understand how everything works and just work around with the data from that point because you know what each data point means. And as you can imagine, that can give you a good advantage over other candidates going for the same type of role. And this is how I got my foot into the data door, because I've been working at a recruitment agency in different types of roles for 10 years. And then I applied for different jobs, and the company that ended up giving me the opportunity was another recruitment company. And that's where I started off my career as a data quality analyst. But when I made that jump, I wasn't 100% sure what type of role I wanted. And you'll find you'll probably be in the same boat, because you'll be thinking about all the different types of roles that you like, the idea of what an actual analyst will be doing, or whatever data role it is, what you're going to be doing. And this is why it's important to understand the common data roles that are out there, so you're able to understand what you'll be doing and what sorts of tools you'll need to learn to be able to do that type of role, because you don't want to spend all your time just learning tools that you might not ever actually be using. And those common data roles are data analyst, business intelligence analyst, business analyst, data engineer, and then also a data scientist. So I'm going to start with data analyst, and data analyst can actually be many different types of levels, but generally you'll be working sort of on an ad hoc basis, answering questions to do with whatever the business needs, or if there's particular insights that you need to look into, and any other general sort of data tasks that would be involved. And it all depends on the type of company you work for, because you might have to wear more hats if you're working for like a startup compared to if you're working for a large company. And the type of tools you'll be mainly using are sort of Excel and SQL, mainly SQL if you have a database that you need to be able to pull data from, but generally a lot of the times you'll end up using Excel quite a lot. And depending on the type of business, you might be using Python as well, and whatever type of role you're doing, because if you're doing a particular type of data analyst role, then you might be doing more stuff in Python than using Excel. But really, if you're going to be starting out in that type of role, really you want to start focusing on Excel and SQL. And the next up is the business intelligence analyst, which is more focused around sort of reporting and dashboards. So therefore you need to have more knowledge of a visualization tool like Tableau, Power BI, or Looker, amongst others. But the role will involve finding the data, dealing with stakeholders, understanding their requests, being able to deliver those requests, and being able to tell a story with the data sometimes, because depending on what the request is, you're not always doing pure, here's a report and this is going to be being used. Sometimes you have to do sort of ad hoc reports and be able to find insights as well. And the tools you just really need to know in this type of role are your data visualization tools, Excel and basic SQL really. And then we got your business analyst. Now don't get confused with different types of business analysts. This is more a data focused business analyst. You do have ones who are project focused, so it is a sort of a varied term, but in essence, a business analyst who is data focused will be someone who understands the business, goes out to the business, understands their requirements, and actually is more sort of proactive in what the business needs and more in the weeds, shall we say, because where the other type of roles, you're more sort of, you are back office and you always technically will be sort of central office. It's a case of you'll be gathering the requirements and the information, and you might actually do it yourself, but a lot of the times you'll be working with other analysts, be it BI analysts or data analysts or data scientists, whoever's in the company, to be able to help leverage that type of data that is needed. But also you will do some work as well, because in a role which I did, I learned how to use Power BI in that role, but it wasn't needed in that role. It just made my life easier. But really all you ever used was Excel, and then occasionally a bit of SQL just to be able to look at the data warehouse once the company set one up. And then we moved to a different type of data role, which is less sort of on the analytics side really, and that's a data engineer. And what a data engineer is someone who creates sort of pipelines and workflows to be able to pull data and keep it all into one place, so like a data warehouse. And a lot of that is a lot of transformations, a lot of cleaning up, and a lot of getting data into a really nice place to be able to be used for the business, be it for feeding into other systems or being able to use for analytical purposes as well. So this one, you really need to know SQL in most cases. There's a lot of tools out there that can make your life a lot easier, things like Matillion, that are able to automate and really sort of use a sort of drag and drop SQL built-in components, so then you're able to then be able to connect them and just use very minimal SQL to be able to get the result you want. But you still need to know the theory behind SQL to be able to understand how everything kind of works. Really, that one is more sort of data job heavy than actually doing analysis, although you will do some of that. And also the data engineering side, that kind of falls into other roles as well, depending on the type of company you work for. And that brings me nicely to the data scientist. Now, the data scientist can be very confused into what people think a data scientist is, because you talk about knowing machine learning and then all the sort of other parts. And depending on the type of company, again, if you're working for like a startup or something, you'll probably have to do all 5 roles and you are a data scientist. And it depends on the type of job that is required, because if the company is a big company, then your data scientist role could be more focused on finding insights and understanding what's happening, to being more forward thinking with prediction models and being able to run tests, help the business understand how things are working with different models. And it's very much a more technical, statistical based type role where you'll need a lot more knowledge, and it's not really one that you'll be able to jump straight in unless you were someone who studied and then you come from like a PhD background or something which would be more sort of related. If you don't have that sort of knowledge or background, then this one is something you'll more work your way towards in a data career than actually jump straight in. But it's worth knowing about it so you understand the different type of roles that are out there. Now I've covered the common data roles and what's involved in the type of tools that each one would use. So which one should you actually learn? And the key one to learn is Excel. And the reason being is that it's still commonly used by every business. It's been being used for years and years and years, and it's still being used to this day. Even majority of people who are working in companies that do deal with a lot of data anyway, a lot of the reports they deal with, especially in finance, are still very much Excel based. And even if you have a tool that actually does everything for you, say if you have a payroll system or financial modeling system or something like that, you'll be able to then use that, but you'll still probably spit out a report that's probably in Excel. So a lot of the data and exports are always going to be Excel based or table based anyway, which you can actually do in Excel. And also Excel is really good for just being able to just do a quick bit of analysis, check data, join data and things like that, and why it's probably the most versatile, because you can just click, do a few formulas and being able to pull in the information that you need. I've used Excel all my career, and I used Excel in my previous jobs before I ended up moving into data, which obviously gave me a benefit there as well. But it is the one that all companies still use to this day. So it's still an important one to understand and use and learn. But on top of learning Excel, you want to learn the basics of SQL. So things you want to be able to do is being able to actually get the table information so you can actually see the table, all the data in it, be able to filter it, and then also being able to aggregate it as well. Those are sort of the key things that you would need in most data roles. And in my 11 years experience of doing data roles, I've only ever really needed to do that. Even then, I've barely had to go beyond doing even a group. Normally it's just being able to just do select from, and then being able to actually just get the table that I need to be able to check it has the data that I need, and then just be able to reference the columns that I need to pull in. It's only when I have to do any sort of data engineering side of things is where things become a lot more complicated. But unless you're going to be a data engineer, you only really need to know the basics of SQL. And then after that comes the age-old debate. Do you go for Tableau or Power BI or Looker, or R versus Python? And the answer is, it depends. And the reason being is they both have their strengths and they both have their weaknesses. But if you're going to be looking for data roles, you want to focus on what the company or companies that you want to actually apply jobs to, or the type of industries as well, which will actually give you an idea of what you should actually learn. Too many people say, oh, you should learn Python or you should learn Tableau because that's what they use. I've used R, hardly ever used Python, and even then R was mainly just to be able to just get some charts that I couldn't do in Power BI. And then I've only used Tableau slightly, but I use Power BI the most. But I'm not going to tell you to learn Power BI and learn R because I've learned them. No, you want to be able to learn what you need to learn to be able to get the data career that you want. And that needs to be part of your understanding of the type of industries and companies that you're going to be working for, because those will drive what you need to learn. And a prime example is if you look at media companies, they use Tableau a lot, and they still do because they've been using it for longer than Power BI has actually been around. Power BI has been around for now, I think 7-8 years, but Tableau's been around for a lot longer. So a lot of companies are already embedded into it, and that's why they use it. There's companies out there who use R over Python. I've heard that Facebook use R more, but at the same time, there's no reason why you can't use Python. It's understanding the type of business you're going to work for. So check those jobs, look at what they have in there, what is not necessarily desirable, but what is the key things that they look for. And that includes obviously understanding things like when they talk about sort of data warehouses. A lot of the time, if you just do it an analyst role, all it is as long as you know enough SQL to be able to grab the data from that warehouse, you could ask someone how to actually connect to it. So it's not necessarily an issue of you really understanding how all those bits work. But the key thing here is always understand what you're applying for, stick with it and learn those. And that way you're not wasting any of your time learning something that won't actually help you find the job because you don't have the experience using it. And there's nothing wrong with actually learning something and then not using it, because that knowledge is generally transferable because you know the theory behind how to do something, especially if it's saying like doing a bit of coding to be able to do one thing, you can transfer that skills to do something else. So say if I created something in SQL and then I wanted to do it in Power Query, I knew how to move over to there because I knew how to do it in SQL, and therefore I was able to then figure out how to do that version of in Power Query, even though they're two different languages. So my advice would be just to understand what type of tools the industry or the companies you want to apply for jobs for are using and learn those. But then also in your current company, if you want to move in there, find out what tools they use and then learn those as well. But with technical tools, this is only part of what you need to be able to work in data. A lot of it is actually being able to have what they call soft skills. And generally, if you've been working, or even if you've just been studying and then been doing placements and been doing these particular things in that particular role, and these will be able to help you get a crossover of your skills and knowledge that you already have that can transfer over into a data role. So what you want to do is sort of understand the type of things that would normally be needed in a data role. And a lot of the times when you're looking at job descriptions, it will have bits of information in there, and then figure out the type of stuff that you know and have done and being able to use that in a data role as well. And these can be examples of problem solving, critical thinking, communication, stakeholder management, project management, storytelling, a good eye for detail, and probably one of the most important ones, being able to explain complex things simply. So just figure out those type of things that fall into a data role and just ensure that you've got those ready for when you need to start putting your CV together and explain times when you've actually done those particular type of things, because that will give you a massive advantage when applying for roles. But also it can then give you an idea of where you might have strengths and weaknesses. And this is very helpful to be very self-aware of the type of role that you want to be able to do, what you're capable of doing, what you're learning, and then what your actual strengths are, because your strengths are your unfair advantage. Because you're able to utilize those can give you a good starting point to be able to work from. And then anything else that you feel you need to fill in. And the thing is, we always have weaknesses, and then not all of them are actually beneficial to actually improve to be able to help you in, say, a particular data role anyway. So always focus on the ones that actually need to be the ones that you need to improve. And you can just do that just by reading, doing courses, and just practicing doing the actual task at hand. Be it that if you wanted to practice storytelling, then you can kind of do some analysis and be able to talk through how that analysis got to here, to here, to here, to here, and then provide that insight in a manner that people would understand, which then could play down to the part of where you're taking something complex and then making it simple. And the great thing is, you can do that all online as well. And the best way to showcase all the things that you've learned and showing off your strengths is to have an online presence, be it a profile online showing what you're capable of doing, or even just having a social media presence on something like LinkedIn or YouTube like this, because getting a job is hard enough, but even harder if you don't actually have the proof to showcase to people that you can actually do the job. But luckily, with the age of the internet, there are so many places where you're able to showcase what you can do, and data sets out there for any data related portfolio. And you can do that using things like Kaggle or GitHub or many other sites that allow you to showcase what you can do. Like even Tableau has a public Tableau site where you can upload all your Tableau reports that you've created, and then you can showcase them that way. There's also other sites that allow you to be able to do their competitions. They're another great way, and you can also house your competition on there. I've known people who have done competitions, and then because of winning those competitions or doing quite well in those competitions, got the eye of people who were like building something, and then they were able to then work on a contract basis, helping out there. But then the final product is an actual company that exists online, and therefore they can showcase and go, that site is something they worked on and created. But if you're going to do this, make sure that you're only focusing on data that relates to whatever type of industry and company you're working for. I know I keep harping back to it, but really just focus on that, because there's no point in you sitting there and doing an analysis on marketing and customer support if you're going to be applying for finance roles. That doesn't help you in being able to actually showcase what you can do for a finance role. So that's why it's important to always focus on whatever you're looking to apply for, industry or company, focus on that data and then build your portfolio that way. And that's one way of being able to actually build your presence. And as I mentioned, places like LinkedIn and YouTube are another great way of you being able to build a presence online. And if you don't believe me, if you look at the number of users there are on LinkedIn, there are 1 billion users. Of those 1 billion users, only 3 million post. And of those 3 million, only 1 million post sort of content related articles. So really the main content creators, or people who are posting actual content and not just job postings or just general bits of information, is only 1 million out of over 1 billion users. There's less than 1%. So by you posting some content on LinkedIn that showcases what you can do, you're already up there as being one of that 1 million worldwide who are posting content, and less than 1% who are actually showcasing what they can do. That gives you an idea of how many candidates out there who are not doing this, and therefore that gives you that advantage. But then if we then look at YouTube, YouTube has over half of the social media users globally, with 2.6 billion users. And of those users, 113.9 million have an active account for posting content. So it means they post at least one video, but not all will post consistently, or maybe just one off, or maybe they've stopped posting. So if you end up looking at how many users on YouTube have at least 100 subscribers, that's actually 28.4 million. And it's not that easy to get to 100 subscribers, but if you just posted a few videos and just let them over time grow, you would actually gain probably 100 subscribers. And that again puts you into the 1% of content creators on YouTube. So again, you have that advantage of being able to be present online, and it just means that people can just come across what you can do, as well as you being able to provide that information to be able to back up what you say you can do, and then adds to that credibility because it helps you get seen and maybe even get an interview. And another great way to be seen: network, network, network. And the great thing with networking is you can do it online and in person. And online, like with LinkedIn, it's the same process. You can do a lot of networking online using LinkedIn, but also there are online event websites and apps like Meetup, which allow you to be able to find events online, but also in person. And then you can search online to be able to find any other places which are nearby for any data events. Because if you start to get yourself out there and network, you can meet like-minded people, and those people might be able to give you information, help you in your journey, or other job opportunities. But even with all of this that we've already covered, you'll still need to create a CV that's tailored to focus on what matters. So the importance of tailoring what matters in your CV is you don't want to be bogged down with loads of paragraphs of stuff you've done that's not related to the job. There might be things in there that you've done really great work that you want to talk about, but it's not related to the data. Save that for the interview, because you want to be able to keep your CV concise, ideally one page, but it depends how much work experience you have. But if you're trying to change careers, you'll be limiting to what type of information you'll have in there. So really you'll be focusing on a lot of your soft skills, and then also talking about any of the additional learning that you've done. If you've been able to do any stuff while you're actually on your job or on your placements, then great, include that if it's data related. But really you want to be able to just capture the recruiter's eye, but knowing that if they want to put you forward for the actual job in the first place. Because if you don't, or it doesn't get captured by the ATS when it's feeding through because it doesn't have the keywords that are needed, then you're going to find that you won't be even hearing anything back from people. But when you do hear back and have the opportunity of doing an interview, one of the things you want to do is check if there's going to be any tests. Generally with data roles, you will have to do a mock test of something. You might be lucky to get it done where they send it to you so you can do it at home, or you might have to do something while you're there at the interview. But the important thing is to double check if there is any mock interview, because if there is, then you want to brush up on the skill set for whatever that interview is requiring the test for, be it Excel, SQL, Tableau, Power BI, Python, or R, or any other tool that this particular company uses. And don't worry too much about having to cram in everything in the off chance they might ask this, they might ask that. If you do go to an interview, a lot of the time it's just understanding the basic knowledge and being able to see if you could do something, if you put on the spot to do something within the actual interview. So say if they're doing the interview, sit you down at computer, ask you to do something in SQL, Excel, as long as you know the sort of the basics and the key things that are needed, that should get you through the test enough as it is. And then also if you're going to take the test away, then as long as you know enough, a lot of it, you'll just end up working your way through to figure out any things you're stuck on and need to understand by using Google or any other search tool, and even ChatGPT. And the thing is, this is not cheating. This is day-to-day normal job for us. When we work in data, we do not remember everything. Even me, who makes videos about how to do stuff, I still have to refer back to my videos to remember how I did it. I don't remember. I can't hold all that information in my head and remember. If you don't do it all the time, you will forget, which is fine. So when you do a data job, don't think, oh no, I need to know everything off the top of my head. No one does. No, any data person who tells you they remember everything, every SQL code, everything like that, and never have to search, they're lying. There's no way. There's no way that you can do that. And that's why, don't worry, as long as you understand the theory, enough of the basics of being able to do what you need to do, then you're all good. But this is why practicing some mock tests will at least give you an idea of what might be asked, so at least you're ready. And it means that even if you do miss one or two, it's fine. If you got the most done, you're golden. But to get those tests, to get those interviews, to get all of this and be able to actually get that data career, there's one thing you have to do, and that's actually get yourself out there. And that's the main thing. For me, I only took the leap because I was made redundant. I'd been at a company for 7 years, moved into 3 different roles, and the last role I was made redundant. And it's important to get yourself out there, because if you don't get yourself out there, you're never going to get that opportunity. Yes, there will be rejection. Yes, you will spend time wondering, did they even receive it? Did they even check it? You just don't know. And a lot of time you won't. And that's the unfortunate thing of the job market, whatever job you're doing. It's even harder when you're doing a career change without having the knowledge already. It's so much easier to find a job if you're just transitioning from one job to the other, which is exactly the same job. You're just going from one company to another company. I took the risk of being made redundant and not looking for a job that I could easily get into. And I had many opportunities. My CV was up there. I got calls from companies and recruiters asking me to interview for roles that were similar to the ones I already did, but I told them no, I wanted to do a data role. And over a 6-month period, I probably had a few interviews, sent out many applications in my CV, had it online, and I even had an interview for a job that I did 3 interviews for, got offered, only for them to pull the job. But eventually I got a job. And the handy thing was, because I was made redundant and I was still working, I was still kept on for a period, but I passed my redundancy period, I was available instantly. So that was also an advantage as well. But this is the thing. Don't worry that you don't have the skills yet. You haven't learned enough yet. You haven't done anything yet. If you have those soft skills and you are able to at least use Excel, just get your CV out there. Just get yourself out there, get your LinkedIn profile updated, because the only way you are going to be able to actually start that career in data is by getting yourself out there. So just do it. And what's the worst that can happen? You don't get anything? That's fine. You keep learning, you keep going, and then one day you'll actually get that data job, and then you'll never look back. Like me, 11 years on, still here. And you know what? Even after 11 years, 30 years, how many? It doesn't matter how long you have been doing a data job, or any job for that matter, because one thing you should always do, never stop learning. It's why I do this YouTube channel. It helps me learn because I'm able to document stuff I've learned, but then also be able to push me to be able to try different things, and then I'm able to showcase how to do this stuff, because this helps not only you to be able to do your job better, you can do your job quicker, but it helps build up your skill set. So you can build that career, you can move within different data roles, you can go into other companies. You have that opportunity. The thing is knowing what you want to learn and learn it, but just always continue to learn, because once you do, you'll just constantly progress through your career, because you're always going to be able to showcase more of what you're able to do. And speaking of learning, if you want to start learning some of the things like Power BI or SQL, then check out these videos over here where I cover both of those to help you get started to get you that data career.